So I'm going to do a quick recap of my last trade. Yeah, some interesting stuff today. So we saw Asia, nothing too fancy, nothing too shabby. Now with that said, we saw Asia lows being taken, liquidity, then price rally to the upside, giving us a clear market structure shift, and then from the high, then gave us a clear break of structure. Now seeing all that, I would say in control as we were moving into our opening range here. Now let's just see what price does for us with regards to that range. I'm going to fast forward slightly. We can see price broke now to the downside right here. We know NAS can be a bit neither here nor there. So just be careful and cautious with it. It can be very volatile and very profitable. But with that, it can also lead to some losses. And also, but with that said, I think it's an interesting currency. It's an interesting index to be trending. And I do enjoy it once in a while. Now, we have a clear break of structure right here to the downside. And with that said, maybe what I would be looking for price to do is give us some clear lows down here, and then come back to some of our zones right there, and then take out some liquidity, then possibly drop to the downside. Now, let's see what price did. With that said, some sort of, yes, it is. So we have that zone there. So I'm just going to quickly mark up some of my levels. I'll do that to here. Let me see, where is my, hopefully there's an order block there. And then I'd be looking for something around this zone. I will just refine the zone so that they're a bit clearer. That one is a trade that I always take. This one is in my entry criteria. Then I will come here and just refine this zone. Take a short from there. For each, according to my strategy and according to my rules, for each setup, I have two chances to take the trade. My very first one will be a quick 1:2. And then my second chance will be a quick 1:3, which should cover some of my loss, give me some profits because it has a wider area to travel. Now, so we patiently waited for price to move according to what we wanted to do. We can see it still wants to break these lows down here, took some liquidity, and then it's pushing to the upside. I like what I'm seeing here, which is imbalance, meaning that price will definitely want to have to come down here and take that imbalance. If price was fairly priced, if it was forming some sort of trendline liquidity like that before it came back, then we know there could be some high, but again, you never know what price would do. It would do. This is also another strategy where price forms this trendline liquidity, then comes out and takes. Let's see what price does. It dances around a bit, and then we see another move, another expansion to the upside, which is good. We saw it come back to this area of interest. Those of us who are usually very might put an entry here, possibly leave an open stop loss, and then once price drops, it just falls and you're compounding your entries. I definitely do not take these entries here. They're just usually a good guiding point, or reacts heavily from there, but I just usually don't. I usually want to see it come back to the 50% mark somewhere here, and then we can possibly have this act as a resistance. You can see it resisted right there. But I want to see it come back to a sort of supply or an imbalance like a fair value gap. Then I take my entry. Now price kept on rallying to the upside. We were tagged, which is my first entry. And as we see, price reacted on that zone. However, it still wanted to move higher as the buyers were still pushing price to the upside. And then this one was a quick loss. It went straight to my stop loss, which, I'm not mad about because now my second entry is triggered. Now, I'll be honest and full transparency here. By the time price was getting to this point, I was in doubt of the trade in itself and whether I really want to do it. However, I'm just waiting for this candle to close. If it did close above here, of course, our trade is invalid. But I saw this rejection weak. Price was rejected to the downside, which is a good sign for me. So what I was waiting for next is a two candle swing, as many people call it, but it's just 2 consecutive candles in the direction that you anticipate price to be moving, and then you market execute, or you just hold on to your entry. So I held on to this entry. If this candle closes bearish, we want price to move to the downside aggressively even further. Now we saw that, and exactly as so easing some of that pressure, and then let's see what happens. By this time, I'd be moving I move my stop loss to break even so that our trade free. And price came down all the way to our TP. And then we saw price react and rally up to the upside again. If we were still in this trade, of course, we'd be taken out by then. But then what we also saw price do, interestingly enough, is that it came back to take up here, which is beautiful, and then melt again down to the downside. So if your stop loss was a bit higher, this one was a bit aggressive, which is good, give us a 1:3. However, if your stop loss was maybe, let's say, above some of these levels, previous levels, maybe on the lower time frame, you'd still be in the trade and you'd still hit your 1:4, 1:3, 2.5, 1:3 possibly. Beautiful trade on NAS. Coming into the New York, just before the New York session, but if you're coming into the New York session, price still rallied to the downside, still dropped to the downside, and then possibly came back up as we waited for the news. So that is my recap for the NAS trade.